This conference will now be recorded.
Going to call the April 16th, 2020, 7 p.m. special meeting to order. Roll call, please.
McKeever.
Here.
Myers.
Here.
Me.
Here.
Luca.
Here.
Yoakum.
Here.
Vote.
Here.
Alsept.
Here.
Thank you.
And we got one communication petition. Could you read that for us, Mr. Hill?
Yes, this letter is dated April 16 regarding emergency plan. It's directed to Mayor Reeser, Service Safety Director Wagner, and Auditor Schiffer. It is from the Council President, Kurt Fankhauser. Also, a carbon copy to it is Bucyrus City Council, Kepke, Fire Chief, Acting Fire Chief Lee, Cyrus FOP Lodge number 68, and IAFF Local 1120. Dear Mayor Reeser, SSD Wagner, Auditor Schiffer, I received a joint emailed letter on April 15th from the three of you asking for council to come up with a COVID-19 response plan for the city. The letter also briefly mentioned budget issues and anticipated cuts due to reduced income tax revenue. The letter was immediately followed up by another email from the mayor with subject what other cities are planning and contained two links to news articles coming out of Sandusky and Parma, Ohio. After reading those articles and realizing they were completely financial and budgetary in nature with no mention at all to a COVID-19 response plan in those cities, I came to the conclusion that the mayor is asking council primarily to come up with a financial plan for the city of Bucyrus. By the mayor's own admission in his April 15th letter, it appears the immediate crisis has lessened in intensity. From my own knowledge of sitting on the county public health board, there is an anticipated suspected second wave of cases that may hit around September. This gives roughly 4 to 5 months of planning to prepare for the second wave. The city of Parma is talking about laying off employees, while the city of Sandusky is not currently considering layoffs, but instead considering a 5% pay cut or reduced work hours for non-union employees. Since Mayor Reeser sent those two articles in his email of asking council to come up with a plan, my only conclusion is that council is being asked to consider similar actions taken by these other two cities. Because of the unknown anticipated budgetary impact, it would make sense for the city of Bucyrus to consider doing some sort of action now. Raising wages for non-union employees, which is exactly what would happen if Bucyrus Council passes ordinances 13-2020 and 14-2020, would be completely contradictory and opposite to what the city of Sandusky is doing and what Mayor Reeser is asking of council to come up with a plan. Therefore, it is my recommendation, knowing that council can retroactively do these wage increases at a later time until after we know the true financial impacts on the city's budget, that it would be reckless and irresponsible of the Bucyrus City Council to do unnecessary wage increases that we are not legally obligated to do. The wage increases to reflect the recent ASME contract signing can be addressed as a separate piece of legislation to bring the city into contract compliance with that union. The mayor's letter also stated that a civil service test cannot be done right now, thus preventing the city from hiring additional full-time employees. I believe that with proper safety precautions, a test could possibly be safely done and should be further looked into. With a potential 4 to 5 month window until a second wave hits in September, this should give us enough time to conduct a test and have a list of police and fire employees to hire from if we need to. I must also point out that in a January 13, 2020 meeting I had with the mayor concerning EMS coverage, that I then brought up that fact that we should be doing a civil service test for the fire department, due to that department currently being understaffed, and that idea was shot down. This inability to hire right now due to not having an active civil service list to hire from is a direct result of poor planning and foresight of the mayor's office. As far as the idea that the city should lay off police and fire employees right now due to an anticipated 20% loss of income tax revenues, Auditor Schiffer has been unable to produce any documentation to me at this time that would indicate any revenue losses for the city. Considering that many of the large workforces contributing to income tax collection through their payroll in our city have not shut down, such as GE, Bucyrus Blades, and Ohio Mutual, just to name a few, I believe realistically that our city's budget will be impacted by a less percentage than the statewide budget. The 20% number came from Governor DeWine's office over a month ago, and considering how far off other projected numbers have been coming from DeWine's office, I feel should be taken lightly until we have further hard numbers. We need to wait for more data before such drastic actions are taken against the city's safety forces. There are also large amounts of unencumbered balances throughout various line items of the city's budget that can be pulled back out, as well as a large carryover from 2019 in the general fund that can be used to help keep police and fire funded without resorting to layoffs at this time. The SAFER, Staffing for Adequate Fire and EMS Response grant, is opening back up as well this month, which the city has been a recipient of in the past and could help ease a budgetary crunch to keep safety services staff without resulting in layoffs. A knee-jerk reaction right now by the administration to resort to safety service layoffs would be reckless, irresponsible, and could jeopardize the safety of the 12,000 citizens of the city. Those employees could seek employment elsewhere, and without an active civil service list to hire from right now, could put the city in a position of not being able to recall those employees or hire any replacements. I suggest that at the April 21, 2020 regular meeting of the Bucyrus City Council, that the council form an ad hoc committee to come up with a financial plan for the city to move forward. I am also recommending that this committee have members on it that are representatives of each of the city's unions. Since the mayor's office sent a similar letter on April 15, 2020 to the union heads of both FOP Lodge number 68 and IAFF Local number 1120, asking them to come up with their suggestions for a COVID-19 response plan as well, this special ad hoc committee would be consistent with what the mayor is requesting from both council and the unions. I have spoken to union leadership, and they indicate that this ad hoc committee would be something they would be willing to participate in. We all need to work together as a unified community to ensure the health, safety, and stability of the city right now in these trying times. Sincerely, Kurt A. Fankhauser, President of Council. And that letter needs to be accepted and filed.
So moved.
Yocum,
Second, vote.
Okay, I'll do a roll call vote. Myers?
Yes.
Vote.
Yes.
Alsept?
Yes.
Keever?
Yes.
Me?
Yes.
Truca?
Yes.
And Yocum?
Yes.
And then granting time for visitors to speak. Is there any visitors who want to speak to council tonight, reference these issues here on the agenda?
Yes, Vicki DeShawn, 1108 Hillcrest Drive, Bucyrus, Ohio. I do have several questions and suggested changes to the Billet, Employee Manpower, and Supervisor Manpower ordinances that are being presented at tonight's meeting, but I will discuss them after the first reading of each ordinance. At this time, I would like to address some questions that were asked at the April 14, 2020 Special Finance Committee meeting. At the meeting, inquiries were made by several council members as to how long certain positions in the Employee Manpower and Supervisor Manpower ordinances had remained unfilled. I have secured the answers to those questions. The casual secretary position in the law director's office has not been filled since February 22, 2016, when the secretary retired. The police administrative secretary position in the safety forces has not been filled since April 1st, 2005, when the secretary transferred to the mayor's office. The tennis program supervisor position has not been filled since 2011. The casual pool secretary position has not been filled since October 14th, 2011, when the secretary was laid off. The utility service superintendent position has not been filled since October 24th, 2017, when the superintendent retired. The waterworks filtration superintendent position has not been filled since December 30th, 2016, when the superintendent retired. The wastewater superintendent position ended in 2017 when that superintendent became the utility superintendent for the utility services, waterworks filtration, and wastewater departments. The utility superintendent position has not been filled since April 26, 2019, when the superintendent retired. Also at Tuesday's meeting, several council members questioned why the service safety director and part-time city engineer positions could not be placed in the employee manpower, thereby eliminating the supervisor manpower. In response, the law director stated that the supervisor manpower was needed because the service safety director position has certain requirements which the law director did not outline, and I quote, a lot more restrictions. The restrictions were identified as no overtime, no flex time, and no comp time. In previous years, when the service safety director position was included in the employee manpower, The restrictions of no overtime, no flex time, and no comp time were also placed in the employee manpower. Because council is proposing to delete the utility service, utility, filtration, and wastewater superintendent positions from the supervisor manpower, I also question why we need to have two separate manpower ordinances. By eliminating the supervisor manpower and including the service safety director and part-time city engineer positions in the employee manpower, the city, among other things, will save taxpayer dollars by not having to pay for two publications of the caption of the supervisor manpower ordinance in the Bucyrus Telegraph form. With that being said, I encourage council to consider eliminating the supervisor manpower and placement of the service safety director and part-time city engineer positions in the employee manpower. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any public participation? Moving on, consideration of proposed legislation for the first time.
Yes, we have three ordinances before you. These are ordinance number 12, 2020, repealing and replacing ordinance number 2020, the Table of Human Resource Staffing Organization, the City of Bucyrus, Ohio, active through December 31, 2020, and declaring an emergency. Referred back to Finance. Ordinance number 13, 2020, repealing and replacing ordinance number 26, 2019, establishing the compensation and human resource staffing, sick leave, and vacation of employees of various departments in the City of Bucyrus, Ohio, and enacting in its place legislation pertaining to the compensation and human resource staffing, sick leave, and vacation of employees of various departments in the City of Bucyrus, Ohio.
Could you hold on, Todd? Mark, we're getting some feedback coming through your microphone there. It's kind of interrupting Todd's thing. Thanks.
I'll start over. Repealing, this is ordinance number 13, 2020. Repealing and replacing ordinance number 26, 2019, establishing the compensation and human resource staffing, sick leave, and vacation of employees of various departments in the City of Bucyrus, Ohio, and enacting in its place legislation pertaining to the compensation and human resource staffing, sick leave, and vacation of employees of various departments in the City of Bucyrus, Ohio, retroactive to January 1, 2020, and declaring an emergency. That's referred back to the Finance Committee. And ordinance number 14, 2020, repealing and replacing ordinance number 15, 2017, establishing the compensation and human resource staffing, sick leave, and vacation of employees of various departments in the City of Bucyrus, Ohio, and enacting in its place legislation pertaining to the compensation, sick leave, and vacation of the Service Safety Director and City Engineers, said employees not presently covered by present or contemplated collective bargaining contracts affecting employees of the City of Bucyrus, retroactive to January 1, 2020, and declaring an emergency. That also is referred back to Finance.
Need a motion to accept these as a first reading?
McKeever, make a motion for.
Myers, second.
I'll do a roll call vote. McKeever.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Key.
Yes.
Trucca.
Yes.
Slocum.
Yes.
Yes.
Those are
And Alsept.
Yes.
Thank you.
It is referred back to originating committee. Is there any public participation? Any member of the general public may present their input or comments on legislation that's been read for the first time.
Yes, Mr. President, this is
Yes.
Mark McKeever. I have some information I'd like to present.
Okay, go ahead.
On the billet and on the ordinance 13, 2020, I do believe we need to pass these due to the pay raise that you're talking about is 2.25% for 13 employees. And correct me if I'm wrong, Joyce, if you can, out of the general budget for the entire year for the 13 employees, this will amount to $7,528.81. Now, 3 of the positions that are in this take the majority of the increase, which is approximately $5,000. So the 10 other employees are breaking up $2,500 out of the general budget. Now, 3 of them, if I'm not mistaken, do get paid only 20% of the general budget, but they get the other 80% out of 4 other funds, which are self-sustaining, which is the water, wastewater, etc. I believe that in order for us to show unity to our employees, we need to pass this, because even with the pay raise for the AFSCME contract, there are 38 employees, and the total bill for them is $40,000 approximately. It's a little bit more than that, just rounding it to a nearest number. That's for the entire year for only 38 employees. I could understand if we were to approve this pay raise for the non-union employees, it would amount to $100 and some thousand. I can understand that we may be in a financial crisis, but we still need to approve this for them. It would not be fair to the non-union employees to be even considered, or to put them off until 4, 6, 8 months from now, when we still have to pay back all the way for the entire year. I believe we should do this and show unity to all the employees. By doing that, if we came into a financial burden that we are going to go into the red due to this COVID-19, and if it were to have a second occurrence, or whatever the situation may be, I believe by showing them that we've made cuts elsewhere prior to cutting payroll, that they would all be in agreement, as long as we communicate with them and show them what cuts we've made, where we made them, and show them that we're asking not just for them, but for all of us, even including council and mayor, anybody that is getting paid, whatever we need to make a cut at, whatever percentage, that we all take the same amount of cut temporarily till we get back on our feet and back into the black. That is my opinion on this. That's why I'm in favor of passing this. Now, what Vicki Deshawn mentioned, that is a possibility, but as of right now, we need to pass this like this, and we can consider that in the future on the next one that has to be done, unless somebody else has any objection to that.
I do have a little bit of input. I'd like to get page 12 of 13 on ordinance 13/2020, the section 15 off of there. It hasn't been utilized since 2004, and I've had a lot of phone calls about that. I mean, and emails, upwards of 15, 20 different people input, and no, and with comfortable passing this until that's at least crossed off.
Where are you at, Credence? Sandy, where are you
Hey,
at?
is there any other public comment?
Did you guys hear me?
It was hard. It was difficult, but we heard you.
Okay.
Is there any other public comment?
Yes. This is John, 1108 Hillcrest Drive, Bucyrus, Ohio. On the ordinance number 12/2020 billet, I just have a couple corrections. On page 3 of 5, where it talks about chaplain, up at the top, identified as letter D.
Okay.
That should be C. rather than D. ABC rather than ABD.
Which page are you looking at now?
Page 3 of 5.
Underneath police, it's B for police, and she's saying we need to correct that to a C for chaplain.
I'm on page 3 of 5. Okay, I see chaplain there. It says D5.
It should be C5.
Okay.
Then on page 5 of 5 of ordinance 12/2020,
Joyce, every time you're moving papers around, it's coming through your microphone there.
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Vicki.
section 3 should read section 2.
I'm going to ask the law director, since his office prepared this legislation as to form, how we should proceed at this point.
I still have some other.
Council can move to make the changes, then proceed. Have a motion and approve it.
I was unable to
I have
copy
some
what he
other.
said.
He said to go. Mr. Ratliff
What'd he
said to
say?
go ahead and make the changes with those two corrections. Make a motion, and it'll be taken care of.
But
Okay,
I have
so
some
did
other
somebody-
changes as well.
Okay, go ahead.
On
Vicki.
Kurt?
which,
Okay, these are two questions I have of the law director. The caption of ordinance 12/2020 states that it is active through December 31st, 2020. My question is, with that language, does that mean that it will be necessary for the billet to be prepared and approved each year, even if there's no changes to the billet?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that something that's new, or that's something we haven't had before?
We didn't have it when I was the law clerk.
Why was that put in there? We never discussed that at a committee meeting.
I don't know. I don't have the legislation request in front of me.
The legislation request does address the active through. In the time I've been here, 4 years as a council clerk, we've had a new bill at least once every year. I can't say for sure, but I'm guessing that we've had at least one every year. And it's always been active through the end of the year. Whether that's necessary or not, I would refer to the law director on that. But the legislation request did not include the phrase active through December 31, 2020. That was carried over from the previous billet, which said active through December 31, 2019.
Mr.
Okay,
President,
is that something maybe we could strike that line out?
Mr. President, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Would it be possible to reword that it will remain active until repealed and replaced?
I refer that to the law director.
You wouldn't need any language. If you wanted to remove that, it would just be perpetual until you changed it or amended it.
So it
So
would
just
say.
striking out after the comma there.
Yes. Yeah, you could just put the semicolon right after Ohio.
Okay, do you have anything
Then you'll
else,
also
Vicki?
need to move, yes, under section 1, you'll need to remove the same verbiage, active through December 31st, 2020.
Okay, yeah.
And under section 2, you'll also need to remove effective to December 31st, 2020.
Okay, I see it. Is there anything else?
Yep, one other thing on 12/2020 is under section 1, this is page 1 of 5. Under section 1B, Law Director's Office, we have Code Enforcement Officer part-time. Then if you go to page 2 of 5, letter E, Safety Forces, we have 1 Code Enforcement Officer.
I
the
did
code
notice that on
enforcement
there myself. We did, it appears
We did discuss that the other night, and I think that Rob gave the answer that in the event that Mr. Grove ever retires, then they would potentially want to have the ability to move it back to the fire department, was the answer he gave the other night.
That position also used to be in the fire department until we created it as a part-time position in the law department. I'd mentioned as well that, you know, it's one of those ones that when you were cleaning things up, you could take it out if you wanted to. But I think it would be beneficial to have it there in case that's something that does get transferred back to the fire department, especially if we're going with a perpetual billet. Keep you from having to change that again.
And my only comment to that is, or question, is with the billet as it is, with a union code enforcement officer under safety forces and a non-union code enforcement officer under the law director's office, that's leaving this billet open to the hiring. In other words, the fire department could say, hey, we want a code enforcement officer under our department. And the law director could say, well, I also want a code enforcement officer under my department. We could end up with 2 code enforcement officers. There's that possibility, is there not?
The fire department's not allowed to hire anybody. The mayor would have to do so. And it would have to go through civil service and through that process.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just asking the question. Thank you.
Okay, so we have several changes here that were mentioned as needing made to this. Does anybody want to make a motion referencing any of that?
Can you refer to the motion, what the actual wordage is again? It says to remove under section 1 of ordinance 12/2020, the date active through December 31st, 2020, and section 2 to remove the date. Is that what this is? And to change the letter Kaplan to C. Is that all there is?
I thought there was a couple more things.
There's a few more here. The section E/D should be section E/C. Section 3 should be section 2. The date December 31, 2020 in the caption in section 1 and in section 2 should all be removed to keep this as law director's perpetual billet. And billet, I believe that's all we're talking about.
Correct.
With what,
Kevin,
In addition to all the changes.
I'll make a motion with what Todd stated. This is McKeever. I make a motion to as what Todd stated for section 1, changing it to section 2 from section 3 and changing the dates out of those, get rid of the December 31st, and to change the letter to C in that section for chaplain. I make that motion.
Motion to amend, I need a second.
Second, Myers.
I will do a roll call vote. McKeever,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
me,
Yes.
Ruka. Ruka,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vote,
Yes.
Alsept.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any other public participation? Reference to the. Okay, hearing none, committee reports on pending
Well, now, is that
legislation.
just, no, wait a minute. I'm still here. Kurt,
What's going on, Vicki?
I also have questions on ordinance number 14-2020, which is the supervisor manpower.
Are we going to go over ordinance 13-2020?
Did you have anything with 13-2020, Vicki, or do you want to proceed with the 14-2020?
No, 13-2020, I'm fine with.
13-2020, I would like to try to get page 12 of 13, section 15 out, since it hasn't been utilized since 2004. And I've had numerous people get in touch with me about it. And I didn't know if anybody else has had any contact with anybody and opposed to leaving that in there.
What section was it?
It was ordinance 13-2020, page 12 of 13, section 15 about the Minutemen.
Do you want to strike the whole section out?
I would like to strike that whole section out.
Does anybody want to make a motion to strike that section 15 out?
So moved.
Who was the first?
Alsept.
And who was the second?
Me.
I will do a roll call vote. Alsept.
Yes.
Me,
Yes.
Ruka,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vote,
No.
McKeever.
Okay, Vicki, on the 14-2020, what did you say you
Kurt.
had?
I'm still doing the roll call vote.
I think
Kurt, back.
Oh, go ahead, Todd.
I've got McKeever, waiting for McKeever.
I'm debating.
Okay, we can't proceed until we have a vote on this. Well, we can, but we'll have to come back to it. Do we want to come back to this?
No.
Okay, and Myers.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then Vicki, what did you have on the 14-2020?
Do I assume that motion to remove section 15 passed?
It's
Yes,
2 no votes and 5 yes votes.
passed.
Then it will be necessary then to renumber the remaining 2 sections. Section 16 will now become section 15, and section 17 will now become section 16.
Yeah, I need a motion to change the section numbers.
So moved, Myers.
Second, Alsept.
I will do a roll call vote. Myers,
Yes.
Alsept,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
me,
Yes.
Ruka,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
Vote.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion passes. And Vicki, on the 14-2020, what do you got on there?
On page 6, the second paragraph, the last word deducted, just a spelling error.
Yeah.
I see, is there 2 Ds in there?
Yes, it's misspelled.
Oops,
Okay.
sorry.
Do we need to make motions to change typos, Rob, like that, or is that just assume we can fix that?
Typos you can generally fix, but as Scrivener's error, that one annoys me because that one I'd seen and I thought I changed it. Yeah, you can make the changes for Scrivener's errors for just typos.
Okay, we'll note that.
And then I do have some others.
Okay, Vicki, go ahead.
Then page 7, the first complete sentence up at the top that deals with the HSA contributions. That sentence says the employer shall pay 75% of the HSA contribution amount for employees' health insurance, and the employee shall pay 25% of the HSA contribution amounts. If you go down to page 7, the second paragraph, it states that beginning January 1, there will be no HSA plan funded. So I do believe that that first complete sentence on page 7 needs to be removed because it refers to an HSA contribution, which later on the ordinance says there is no HSA plan. Am I correct on that, Rob?
That language is kind of left over because it was from the union contracts where it existed in a double fashion, and I believe in this year's union contract we finally got that cleaned up and they were both taken out. The issue was previously it was left in there like that because during negotiations it was both parts were wanted in there in case the HSAs were ever brought back. I don't see the HSAs getting brought back anytime soon, but you never know. That's why the language was in there, and that's why it was left in there last time. But I believe that language got cleaned up and taken out of the new ASME contract. I'd have to look to be sure, but
yes, it did.
I remember we
yes,
talked
it
about
was.
taking it out. So to that.
Yes, it was taken out of 13.
Okay, yeah.
Could we
modify
it?
Taking it out. So that first sentence of top of page 7, beginning on the bottom of page 6, could be taken out with no repercussions.
So you're saying the last sentence on page 7, the last full sentence on page 7 could be taken out? Is that what you just said?
The first full sentence on page 7, which actually begins with, on my copy at least, with 3 or 4 words on the bottom of page 6. It starts with employee shall on the bottom of page 6, last line, and goes through the top of page 7.
You think we should wipe that all out right there that you just said?
If you did, it would then match the ASME contract, the new ASME contract.
Is it your recommendation that we should match the ASME contract? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so does anybody want to make a motion to strike out?
What sentence are you striking out now? I want to make sure
Okay,
you're on board.
On the end of page 6, it says like 4 words from the end. It says employees shall pay 15%, and then it continues on.
No.
Basically, as
no.
No, it starts. I'm wrong there. It starts after the deduction. The starts with the employer shall in that first line of page 7.
Okay,
right.
I see it.
I was looking at
So the sentence that says the employer shall pay 75% of HSA contribution amounts for employees' health insurance, and the employee shall pay 25% of
Correct.
the HSA contribution amounts.
Yes.
So essentially strike that sentence out.
Correct.
Okay, does anybody want to make a motion to
That
do
can
that?
be removed.
So moved, Myers.
Second, McKeever.
I'll do a
I
roll.
still have one more. I have more. Kurt, I'm not done.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Vicky.
Kurt,
Yes, Vicky.
okay, now we're looking at page 8. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, we need to go to page, section 13.
Okay, page 8, section 13.
Okay, the second paragraph, and that deals with employees. In the manpower ordinance,
Vicky, I think you have a bad
I should
internet
say, the
connection.
employee manpower order be furnished at the request of the city. That
Vicky, I think your internet connection is dropping out significantly here. We're not able to make out what you're saying.
supervisor ordinance, and I feel it should. I'm getting,
Can anybody else make out what Vicky's saying?
No, she's freezing up.
Yeah, she keeps dropping out.
Vicky, if you can hear us, your connection has dropped out to the point where we can't hear you at all anymore.
mine says poor network connection.
Yeah, is there any, yeah, we can't hear anything you're saying, Vicky. It's cutting out too much.
Do we want, we could do the phone number?
If
Does anyone have
Vicky
that
would call
offhand?
back on the phone number, if Vicky would call back on the phone number, we'd be able to hear at least. I'm gonna send Vicky a text here, ask her if she can call back on the phone number.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
No.
Now we can't hear you if you're saying anything. You there, Vicky?
I can hear you, Kurt.
Yeah, can you call back on the phone number? Your internet connection must be so bad that it's not letting anything come through about 90% of the time.
Who am I speaking to? Okay, Judy, I'm gonna have to call you back. I have to call you back. I got it. Well. Oh my gosh. What's my access code?
Okay, I think your internet connection might be working again, Vicky.
Can you
No.
hear me now? Yeah, I can
Yeah,
hear
we can
you.
hear
I was
you.
trying to do the call in. Okay. Okay, great. So,
Okay,
did you
last
hear the
I heard
part
was on
about
page 8,
the proof?
section 13 was the last we heard.
Okay, page 8, section 13, second paragraph. In the employee manpower, it talks about proof of death and relationship of the deceased shall be furnished at the request of the city. That verbiage does not appear in the supervisor manpower, and it should be in there as well.
Okay, I'm looking at page 8 of 10, section 13, and you're saying it needs to be added?
Yes, second paragraph at the end after the word employee. And that would be
Where's
the
it at?
wording proof of death and relation. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm trying to look up the ordinance where you're saying that it is showing up and comparing it with the one that you're saying is not showing up.
Okay, ordinance 13, 2020. It appears, let's see, section 13. On page 11 of on page 11 on the employee
Okay, I see it.
manpower,
I see it.
13,
I see it.
2020,
It's a
page
sentence
11.
that says proof of death and relationship of the deceased shall be furnished at the request of the city. You're saying that needs to be added here on page 8, section 13, at the end of the
Second paragraph at the
second
end.
paragraph right after employee. Okay. So
Correct.
does anybody want to, is there anything else?
And then I just
other than
have
that?
one more. Third, I have one more.
Okay, go ahead with the one more.
Yes, one more, Kurt. Page 9 of
listening.
10.
Yep.
Section 17.
Yep.
Section 17 should read section 16.
Oh, yep, I see that. You're right.
Section 17 should read 16 on page 9 of 10.
Yep, I see that.
Mr.
Okay,
President, I
so
can
since
amend
that,
my motion to include all 3 changes.
yeah,
Second.
Todd, you got a list of all them changes you could go over with us just to clarify the motion? Oh, you're muted, Todd. You're muted.
I'm no longer muted. Let's see, I did this for the 13, 2020. It was to eliminate section 15, which was regarding the Minutemen, and it was to renumber the sections at the end of 13, 2020, and well, that's section, we just did that. Section 17 is 16. 14, 2020, the first full sentence on page 7, which is regarding the HSA, that's eliminated, and the match the ASPE contract. And then also on 1420, which is the supervisor manpower, we're adding the sentence from 13-2020 on the same subject on funerals to add the sentence on proof of death from the end of section 13 and 13-2020. And as I mentioned before, this is in here twice. I'm not sure why, but no, I'm sorry, that was 13-2020 is where. Okay, and then 14-2020, the end of it, were section 17 and 16. I just also have, and I refer to Ms. DeShawn on this, I have a motion which passed to renumber the sections at the end of 13-2020. Oh, yes, that's the same thing, section 17 and 16. So I will, just to recap now, since I'm straight on this, it is, on 13/20/20, it's eliminating section 15 regarding the Minutemen, is renumbering that last section at the end of 13/20/20 from 17 to 16. In 14/20/20, it is that, eliminating that first full sentence on page 7 regarding the HSAs, and also in 14/20, adding the sentence from 13/20/20 on the proof of death, and also in 14/20/20, section 17 and 16.
So is that what your amendment is, Kevin?
Yes, sir. I amend that as Todd read.
I will need a second.
Need a second for that.
Second, me.
Do a roll call vote. Myers,
Yes.
me,
Yes.
Ruka,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
oh,
Yes.
oh, thank you. Alsep
Yes.
and McKeever. I didn't hear you. You're muted.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, the motion passes. Okay. Committee report on pending legislation. Mr. McKeever.
Yes. Finance Committee is favorable to ordinance 12-2020 as amended for the billet. Finance is favorable to ordinance 13/2020 as amended for employee manpower. Excuse me. Okay. And finance is favorable to ordinance 14/2020 as amended for supervisor manpower.
Need a motion to accept those reports?
So moved, Myers.
Second vote.
Thank you. I'll do a roll call vote. Myers,
Yes.
vote,
Yes.
Alsep,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
me,
Yes.
Ruka,
Yes.
and Yocum.
Yes.
Thank you.
Further consideration of pending legislation for the second and third reading of proposed ordinance number 12-2020. Do I hear a motion to suspend the rules, waive the reading of the caption and text, and declare it an emergency?
McKeever, yes.
Truca, second.
McKeever,
Yes.
Ruka,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
vote,
Yes.
Alsep,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
me,
No.
ordinance number 12/2020.
Okay, we had 6 yes votes to 1 no vote, so that's good there. Do I hear a motion to adopt proposed ordinance 12-2020?
So moved, Myers.
Second, McKeever.
Myers,
Yes.
McKeever,
Yes.
me,
Yes.
Ruka,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
vote,
Yes.
Alsep.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 12-2020 is duly adopted. For the second and third reading of proposed ordinance number 13-2020, do I hear a motion to suspend the rules, waive the reading of the caption and text, and declare it an emergency?
So moved, McKeever.
Second, Yocum.
McKeever,
Yes.
Yocum,
Yes.
vote,
Yes.
Alsep,
No.
Myers,
Yes.
me,
No.
Truca.
Yes.
Ordinance number 13, 2020. That's 5 yes and 2 no. I don't think
Yeah,
that
we don't have enough votes to, it's gonna be held to a first reading.
Right.
Okay. Continuing on, for the second and third reading of proposed ordinance number 14, 2020. Do I hear a motion to suspend the rules, waive the reading of the caption and text, and declare it an emergency? Okay, hearing none, it's going to be held to a first reading as well. There's no council members absent, so I need a motion to adjourn.
Kiever, so moved.
Myers, second.
Beaver,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Truca. I'm sorry, me,
Yes.
Truca,
Yes.
Jokum,
Yes.
Hope,
Yes.
Alsep.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, meeting is adjourned at 7:56 p.m.
Oh, oh, Todd, are you still on here?